This movie has obviously come out this past weekend, and there's been a lot of chatter about what the performance was going to look like, and now we have solid numbers for the opening weekend box office for Deadpool and Wolverine. Early tracking for this film showed that the film would ultimately possibly make between $160 and $165 million domestically, which would already be an astonishing number. It would already surpass the biggest R-rated opening for any movie ever. It would beat the record of Deadpool 1. However, it far, far, far exceeded that early tracking. Domestically, Deadpool and Wolverine made $211 million and globally pulled in $444 million. This now represents the biggest R rating opening ever, both domestically and globally. It's the sixth biggest opening ever at the domestic box office, period. It's only behind Avengers Endgame at 1, Spider-Man No Way Home at 2, Avengers Infinity War at 3, Star Wars Force Awakens and Star Wars The Last Jedi at both 4 and 5, and then now Deadpool and Wolverine, sixth biggest domestic global box office opening ever. It's also the biggest global opening weekend for any movie since Avatar The Way of Water, which came out almost 2 years ago at this point. And this is now the sixth biggest superhero movie opening of all time, only behind the likes of Doctor Strange 2, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man No Way Home, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame, which brought in $1.2 billion in its opening weekend. That'll never, that just won't ever be surpassed in my opinion. On the critical side of things, it did pretty well. It's gotten mixed to good reviews and a 79% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, but audiences love this film, a 97% audience score, and then it walked away with an A cinema score from audiences who saw it in the opening weekend. So this is massive. This is literally one of the biggest opening weekends for any movie of all time, which I think is, not a surprise to many. We all knew it would play really, really huge. It was just a matter of how huge would it ultimately play. But now that it's really sort of etched its name next to other huge films that came out, and now it's a part of history, and it pretty much smashed all records and expectations. What do you think about those numbers off bat? What do you attribute to those numbers? And then ultimately, without knowing obviously how the next few weeks will play out, how far do you think that this can go? We did a little bit of predictions earlier this summer about how much it's ultimately going to make. Where do you think this movie lands by the end of its box office run?
Man, shout out to them for getting these numbers in general. Again, we knew it was going to be big, like you said, but to what extent was the question? And this is still impressive to me by the end of it all because of that rated R-ness, man. Everybody can't go see this movie, or if they do, your mom and your dad got to be there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy to I think, get these numbers under those constraints, but they did it, man. And they did it again off the backs of two superstars now, Ryan Reynolds and even more so Hugh Jackman, man, who was back again, having that mantle as Wolverine. I think that definitely helps having those two guys leading your movie. And I think not only that, but people miss X-Men too, just in general, the idea of mutants. People miss that stuff. I think they're going to go see things that have to do with mutants. I think they're going to want to go see the movie being marketed as, or somewhat marketed. It might be self-marketed. We might be marketed this way, but as a movie that might save the MCU, people are interested in that. Not only that, but we talked about this. Deadpool movies have always had a good track record of marketing. That's just what they do. They market like crazy. This thing has so many TV spots and posters and trailers, and probably one too many trailers. Ain't gonna lie, the last trailer kind of made me mad. I was like, dang, I wish I didn't watch that. But it's a lot. It's a lot by the way of marketing. And I think I almost didn't know anybody who didn't know about Deadpool and Wolverine. And so I definitely think all of those factors come into play when it comes to the success of that movie, man. Not only that, but you talk about what kind of legs it might have, or where it's going to fall. I know it's going to keep going. I know that. I know. Usually, I feel like Marvel movies like this usually have a decent amount of legs, man. They're going to be played for a while. I don't know what the end mark looks like per se. I really don't. It's hard for me to like gauge right now.
Pick a number.
So I will say right under a Billy. I'm gonna give it 900.
No, this is making a bill easy at this point.
Yeah, bill easy.
You got to go above.
I just feel like sometimes stuff be falling off, and you're like, "What the hell just happened?" I don't know.
Now with that audience score, there's just too good of word of mouth for people to not
go see it. Huh? Yeah. Let's do a bill one. A bill one.
Okay.
I'll build one.
Okay.
Because yeah, which is still insane. But yeah, it's definitely gonna make some money, man, and have some legs. So super excited for it, super proud for it. But yeah, they did some numbers and they deserve it, man.
The Disney marketing machine is unreal. It's a beast. There's no coincidence that the biggest openings of all time at the domestic box office are all Disney films. Their marketing machine is just unparalleled. They have so many levers that they can pull, access to so many things that they can tap into that most other entertainment conglomerates just don't. They have theme parks and the licensing and merchandising and all of the different global rights and things that they have. The distribution is it's just on another level entirely. So we cannot certainly disregard that. But then I think the most important thing is really Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. I do think that that is
Mm-hmm.
the number one attribute as to why this did so well. Those first two Deadpool movies were already massive successes. Hugh Jackman is a superstar. His Wolverine movies always did really, really well at the box office. You bring them together, it is a dream team scenario. And it's something to be said that this is the only Marvel movie of this year, and people are yearning for what they would think is going to be a good experience. Track a record would show, like, oh, I can trust this experience because Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are in it. They have typically given me really, really
Mm-hmm.
great experiences when I go to see their movies, especially when they're portraying these characters. So there's a lot of trust, I think, that's just been built up, a lot of goodwill that Disney can obviously tap into, a lot of lineage and nostalgia that they can tap into. And then, of course, just the massive rumors that fueled the hype train leading up to this movie. Most Marvel movies these days, especially in the in-game, post-in-game era, there's that need, that sort of requirement to see it as fast as you possibly can without being spoiled. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have seen movies drop off significantly after that first weekend. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness had a huge opening weekend. It had a huge global opening weekend, bigger than even Deadpool and Wolverine. But because the movie didn't have the greatest reception, it dropped off very significantly after that first weekend. And it didn't even crack a billion. But people rushed out to see it because they knew, like, oh, there's going to be surprises and possible appearances from characters that I don't want to have spoiled for me. And Deadpool and Wolverine has that same exact factor. It has the same factor as what Spider-Man No Way Home had, what Avengers Endgame had, where you want to see it as quickly as possible so somebody doesn't just like spill the beans to you on Twitter or Instagram or something of that nature. And
Mm-hmm.
so it'll be interesting to see how it does in the next few weeks, but there's virtually no competition for it for the next 3 weeks. In all actuality, the only real competition for it is another 20th Century Studios film, Alien Romulus, which comes out in like 3 weeks. So they have so much runway, so much lead time to just
Mm-hmm.
perform. And I think the second weekend is going to be massive too. I think that they might have a chance
Yeah.
of making over 100 million in the second weekend, which is another,
Sheesh.
huge. I mean, that's just like ridiculous numbers. But when you
It
pull in
is.
211 for your first weekend, I think there's a lot of replay value. People want to go back and they want to catch jokes that they probably didn't hear the first time because you were laughing
Mm-hmm.
so hard. So you got to go see it again to catch everything. Obviously, to just relive the experience of all the surprises and things that came with this movie, there's a lot that'll pull people back. And so that replay value is going to be crucial because in order to get those massive numbers to get to $1 billion, you have to get people who are going to see this movie multiple times. That's the only way you can get to that. And so I think that they have a great shot at far exceeding 1.1. I think at this point, 1.3, 1.4 is on the table for sure.
Mm-hmm.
1.4 billion, which would, ultimately make me incorrect. I took the under on 1.1 when we predicted. I said slightly under
Mm-hmm.
1.1, but after saying this, I think it's a shoe in at this point because the movie is pretty good. It's a pretty good movie and people like it. And so there's no real reason, I think, for it to fall off of a cliff like we've seen with some other
Yeah.
examples. But we will certainly see in the next few weeks. But